Nova Ridge, Torpedo, Concord, hold my beer, the new Halamico. Warrakini, Vexor, Code's got a new king, multi-box and catalyst, freighters go bye-bye. Like the Sino, it was always burning since my clone's been learning. Like the Sino, no we didn't light it, but we tried to blab it. Lenny Kravitz, I won't dreaded a pandemic horror.
Oh my god. Is it eVegas time? It is. Let's see what the guys are saying. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hello, everybody out there. Probably ripped ears. Welcome to Push to Talk. It's the eVegas edition. I have my Warp to the Dance Floor shirt on, and I got to turn my cloud on. So yeah, things kind of went insane today. So let's see. Let's go ahead and say hi to McLeod. There's McLeod.
Hey.
And we have Commander A's in. We have Caleb. We have Lux. We have Sothersil. And we have, I'm going to totally botch this, Sob?
Just close enough.
Close enough? Okay. Cool. Yeah. So we have a blank screen down there. Yep. Okay. I see what I got to do now. So cool. So for all you guys, what did you guys think of the keynote yesterday? We're just gonna dive right in. Let's just do it.
It was extremely thin, but very full of positive things, in my opinion. It's got a lot of potential. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
I think it's the exact opposite. Like, I think they were way too vague, and I think they did it on purpose. The things that you can get to from there are either positive or very negative, and I really don't like that they keep it open like that.
I think they're still a little bit squeamish when it comes to promising too much, right? They've pretty much slated the whole roadmap thinking and have gone to this new, well, we can call it vague posting model, right? But at least they seem to have listened to the player base and all our complaints. And now, almost like as an answer and reply to the meta show, there is now an actual plan to have a plan for a roadmap.
So a plan for the plan.
Yeah, it's actually 4 parts, right? So they're doing a 4-part roadmap of some sort, and then they're going to fill it out with things in some sort of 4-stage priority, and then they're going to supply on the side of that. So parallel, you're going to have these Talos updates, which are pretty much going to be fast cadence patching, right? So things that are maybe what you would call low-hanging fruit or way overdue, things like that are going to come into that whole Talos model, which is then going to be on a 2-week scale, and it's changes like the ones we've had recently. I can't remember exactly which ones, but the Warp Drive one is one of these Talos patchings.
Combat interceptors are the one after that as well.
Yeah, that should be great for just basically remaking and reforming a whole bunch of claw fleets that go around blapping stuff in.
I don't think so. Because
yeah.
I mean, we've been there before. Like
But
we
haven't.
were at a point where no one was using intercept, and CCP tried to like buff them to get people to use them, and it didn't work because of assault frigates, because they are kind of in the same need. So that's why they gave interceptors interdiction nullification, right? That's why interceptors can warp through bubbles, because they couldn't get them relevant without giving them something unique. And that has backfired hard.
I was actually thinking they might do it with the warp speed. So they'd make the combat interceptor the faster one, and then you'd have the nullified one. So we'd have a new travel scepter.
I mean, they could totally solve the damn thing by just saying, "Hey, interceptors, no interdiction nullification," and then just make shuttles the taxis. I mean, just come on.
That's actually what it looks like they're planning on doing, because if I'm not entirely mistaken, there was this weird thing with a skin that pretty much put a noob ship on the actual pod, right?
It's interesting.
Really? I didn't see that one. I must have missed that one.
Well, it's part of all that Korean rollout stuff. There was this weird skin that looks a bit like the Amal noob ship, I think, and it basically makes your shuttle look like that. So if they end up going down the whole path of making shuttles the only thing that actually interdicts, and then moves shuttle onto being pretty much just like a skin on the pod, I think we're in a good place. I think that would be a good solution to everyone's worries and troubles.
I think the important thing to note about Roadmapception, which is a roadmap of roadmaps, is it's a process that they announced, which is they'll reveal it like an advent calendar, where they reveal one section and then you get to see the heading of the next one. And that will be the process by which they reveal the roadmap.
And it also fits really well with the fact that they might try to then hit targets of a quarterly thing, right? So try to deliver, and then they can ship some of the faster stuff onto the Talos cadence, and things that might have a little bit of complication. There wouldn't be a problem with them saying, well, we couldn't actually deliver this in this quarter, so we've delayed it to the next. I think this model is actually maybe something that will solve a lot of the old problems we had, because they've tried so many weird models when it comes to getting things delivered, and the cadences, because they also had one that was supposed to be monthly based, and it never really the point where it delivered something meaningful every month. So, and then of course, Hilma said every week. Well, we got something in between. We're getting something every second week, and then we're getting something every quarter. I think that's a really good point.
So, and it just for my sake or whatever, when it comes down to like those like week-long or 2-week-long things or whatever, 2 weeks seems a little bit more stable to me, because even like where I work right now, we'd like to do 2-week sprints. Then obviously they're using Agile or whatever, but going down to a week, that leaves a lot of room for, or not a lot of room for error, but it leaves like almost zero room for error. Better say it that way.
Impossible. It's also why I think in this case they're shifting it on to being that when they have these advent or quarterly lists, right, then they will most likely be working on a set of things that they want to fix or iterate on, and then the ones that are within the realm of 2 weeks, they will then hand off to a specific responsible dev that's going to say, well, I think we can actually now deliver this within the next 2 weeks. So I think this is very much exactly what we've been needing for a long time.
Yeah, but the problem I see with that is that I know I always jump to that one, but 80% of the devs are working on the MPE. So you only have 20% left to work on those changes that you push out every 2 weeks. No matter how you frame that, you can't like do any meaningful big changes that.
I think it's a priority percentage. I don't necessarily think that it's actual dedicated hours. I don't think they work like that. It's just that if we ask them, so how are you splitting the time right now? They are dedicating the main priorities on things that have to do with new players, which is fairly valid. But when you look at what they've actually presented in the keynote and what's most likely going to be presented the rest of the day, it's definitely not all NPE and definitely not new player oriented at all.
Hey.
The Invasion 2.0 at the end of November, you could say that's NPE, but I know I'll be trying it out and participating in it.
I got something to throw out to you guys and anybody in the audience, by the way. There's been this plan. I only told a few people or whatnot. I'm just kind of trying to find the balance of time to do it. Since we're on the subject of the NPE, Mrs. RJ has showed some interest in Eve. So,
Oh my God.
yeah, that's like a kind of thing. So how would you guys, and I want to see what the audience would do. How would you like to see a live NPE with someone who knows zero about Eve to actually see how it actually goes through?
That would be great.
I think that
comms.
sounds great.
If we can be on comms at the same time,
Yes.
it'd be even better.
Like that's literally
We're
how
not allowed to
that's
help out.
no. You're not allowed to help. Now, I mean, obviously, we'd have to be cool about it and everything, but because I could do that, I could stream her like video right into here, and we'll be able to hear her and so on and so forth. But I think that would be pretty fun. So you got a whole bunch of us vets in here looking at a newbie coming through, and hopefully she'll be a newbie. If you get my drift, she'll be a happy little bee. But yeah, I think that may be a good way to document this kind of thing. But that's my plan. We just got to find a time to do it.
Well, I do it after they do the 15-day rewards and they introduce some of the new tutorial content that's on HoboLeaks, so we can see how people interact with the new stuff.
Yeah.
If she's really eager, maybe we could even do a before and after.
I don't know. Oh, well, the whole goal of this, and obviously we've been kind of planning this for a while, is we want to keep her in the game, just like we want to keep every other player in the game as well. So we'll see how bad the MP is, and it's going to be like that one where she's just going to be by herself, and we're like, sorry, not going to help you. But let's see what the actual MP does to a solo player.
Well, they did say we went from 22% completion to 30% completion of the tutorials, so
Don't worry. If
It
everything else fails, I'm going to teach her market stuff, and then she's going to be filthy rich, and she's going to have meta gameplay from just having fun, letting you use some of that money, but under strict conditions.
But she's got to get her PAPs if she comes over to freaking GSF. She's got to get her PAPs.
Nah, she's just going to end up in the Cabal. There's no paths in the Cabal.
But yeah, that's my plan. So since we were on the subject of MPE, so I'll go back to my hole now and let the smarter people talk.
Well,
I don't know. I feel
we
like we
kinda
need
need
Ace's
to-
input here.
Well, we kind of need to transition at some point to RJ's topics. So
Well, what I have here is just pretty much a complete list of what was talked about yesterday. Because now I want to jump to one because this has come up and it's not going to be the big thing. It is the whole. There could have been such a great segue into something at one point where it was, if anybody remembers, CCP Burger talking about like the Icelandic stuff towards the very end of the keynote, like, you know, if you don't like the weather, wait 10 minutes, blah, 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 blah. And I was talking about Caleb about this earlier. That could have segued into one of those. How do you say it? How do you say it, Caleb? It's like the farmers and freaking deal. Like everything's different. Everything gets depleted and then has to regenerate and so on and so forth.
the problem really is if we're supposed to talk about things like logistics line and infrastructure and farms and fields, Iceland is a really bad example. It's a fucking lava rock, right? They have sheep. That's about it. It's like talking about this in Wales. It's like you have to literally walk 4 hours to get to school. So sorry, I just think that CCP might actually not understand the term farms and fields because they don't really have an agrarian society.
Yeah, that's the point I was getting at. Like I was literally sitting there waiting on that freaking PM to PM you, like, oh my god, they finally said it, they're gonna do it, and then no, he just went into some bullshit about Iceland. I was like, okay.
They have to actually like have that in development as well for them to be able to come out of the keynote and go, hey, so we're looking at reworking this. You know, it would have to be at least fairly far because otherwise it would fall under their we can't talk about it because it's not less than 3 months away.
Are you flying an
That's-
airplane?
That's
walking-
Dexter Hill, by the way.
and he's literally walking from one valley to the other.
Currently, he's
On flight.
skydiving.
Like, are you flying an airplane right now? Like,
He couldn't get a direct flight to Vegas, so he got a flight over
Just-
Vegas,
just-
jumped
just
out. Okay,
flying.
just deal with it.
flapping his little arms. Hi, Dirk. By the way, welcome. So okay, all right, so,
Okay, so I am actually just walking home. I'm about 2 minutes away, so I'll have a better connection.
Like one of these telephone interviews on like
No, like seriously, you couldn't have a worse connection.
it's not his connection. It's just the wind. It's where
Our correspondent in the field to
Yeah,
tell.
like fucking Afghanistan or something.
like I'm literally I'm waiting for Eric to like call me or something. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. So anyways, whatever's left on here. So let's see. I think everybody was kind of like, ooh, well, at least I was like, ooh, this one looks cool, but I don't know how that's going to help everything else. What do you think about the Trig Dreadnought?
I think it looks too much like a fucking crucifix, but that's just my personal brain going in there.
I mean, the Trig Dread does have that stance, that come at me, bro stance. Just saying.
And that wasn't
I mean,
Siege
But
mode,
it does
apparently.
look better. It does look way better in Siege mode in the game than it has like in the pictures that I've seen of it. Like the before Vegas, like we got kind of like inklings of pictures and stuff like that and what have you. But like the actual full image, the full kind of like view of it in game kind of thing, I think it looks pretty awesome.
Can we talk about the elephant in the room yet?
Look,
No,
I'm not
what the
that
fuck,
big,
man?
dude. Come on.
The global flex market.
Yeah, I was.
No.
It's the important thing that he wants to talk about, which is the wallet and the.
No, not at all. That's
Oh,
boring.
really? Wow.
No.
okay.
I want to talk about a topic that interests the Goonies out there, because the new redesign of Aura is definitely
How
a
did I-
Rule 34 bound to
Yeah.
happen. There's going to
Oh,
be
yeah,
porn
yeah.
with that
That's true.
model. I can guarantee it. It's just a
Legend
matter of
Shadow.
time, and it looks
Yep.
amazing. And all of that stuff, even though it was only like 30 seconds in the presentation, it's just exactly getting me
So-
hot on the whole walking in station topic.
So,
It's no longer on the shelf. It's
So-
been taken down.
so does that mean we can have our own pleasure hub, but then multiple auras around now?
If you require several, that's fine. You just have to pay for it. I'm sure there's going to be some sort of microtransaction.
Microtransaction,
But then you can
microtransaction
color
to
code
grow
them, right?
thing, whatever.
Apparently, you can color code them so you can get them to have different colors for different days. So you can call her Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
3,000 plex to change this particular attribute.
It's a brave new world where you take the likeness of your FC and you can generate their voice, and it could get a bit weird.
Are
Yeah.
you saying that we can actually make Sothrasil look like a very sexy, big bummed woman?
What
I'm
do you
saying some
mean,
people
mate?
in your fleets might get overly familiarized.
I think A's disagrees.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So, just saying, if that's the most exciting thing to come out of the event, then we're pretty fucked. Like,
No, not at all. It's
not
just
to
point-
be the complete bitter vet.
Well, the point
I
is
mean,
that there's a lot of
in their eyes.
there's a lot of
Okay,
admissions
this
from
should be better.
CCP, and there's a lot of things that pretty much point in a direction that's very much an improvement to where we've been. The fact that this whole thing with controlling your avatar with your video feed, something that was talked about 7 years ago with the Kinect, right? And when all the Nova thing was still a dream. There's so many things, right? That everything that's been slated is now potentially back on the table. So walking in stations, brand unification, single account, right? Because the Plex wallet thing and the fact that you can potentially trade Plex outside of the client on your tablet is one of the steps that you need to take to move things into things like the cryptocurrency that will pretty much be a bookkeeping or budget thing benefit for CCP, but it's also going to be a huge tool for us as players if we get things like brand unification and multiple titles. So there's just so many things that this is hinting at that is amazing.
There's so many
Yeah,
things
the
they can
thing
do
is,
now.
the other
Crack
thing-
pipe
the other
to
thing
my
with-
little character here, I would, but like I don't see that happening. Like, you got to be smoking something pretty special to see those connections.
Well, as I said to Lux, it's just that we're most likely smoking the same thing as Hilmer because he's very hard into cryptocurrency and those things.
Don't take the peyote. Don't take the peyote.
I mean, I'm just saying with regards to A's. I think if A's was going to be on anything like in that particular kind of situation, like it would probably be opium.
Oh.
Well, the opium thing is a real fucking problem these days because apparently it makes people very, very happy, and this is fine, and or rather, in people like Ron's case, this is great. So opiates are just bad for you, so don't do them, Ace.
I mean,
I don't know. I think he's loving it right now.
To get you back on track here a bit, how about we talk about a very important one here, cheating.
Ooh.
And
Ooh.
I don't mean botters, or
broadcasters.
people who are input broadcasting. I'm not talking about that at all. I'm talking about CCP cheating on your own damn charts.
Oh yeah.
Ooh. Controversial one.
You thought we wouldn't see it, but we do.
So if you didn't watch the stream too closely, they had a chart up called "Stop the Bleeding," which had all of the little changes they did late. And apparently someone at CCP thought that chart needed to be like it needed more
to be
things on
full.
it.
It needed to have more things in it,
symmetrical.
so it looked full.
So they actually copy and pasted 4 of the points from the left side to the right side.
This
I mean,
is
it'd
where
be literally unplayable if it didn't have that symmetry.
Exactly.
Well, I could go down a long spiel about actual scribes doing similar mistakes of copying the same line twice in old scriptures, but I'm just going to leave it there.
Yeah, but
I think it was a mistake more than an intended thing.
This isn't just a single line. This is 4 different bullet points in the same order.
Yeah. But the difference is that they didn't really have the copy paste feature back then. They do now. I think it's a copy paste mistake.
Well, but if it is, like, are you telling me no one looked over that and noticed that?
Soth, sorry, no, you're
Oh,
about to.
here it
you
is.
can't do
Yeah,
this.
no.
You can't
You're
do
right.
this. You're about to send me down my CCP fucking copy editing spiel, which, by the way, in case anybody didn't see Manic Velocity's tweet on Thursday,
Was
Eve
it
Online with the no, it was a picture of the Eve Echoes stand. And one of the things, I'm going to have to find the tweet, but basically one of the things was now on model. MODLLE.
Hmm?
Echoes,
Is
now
it
on mobile.
Oh. No,
They have no
at all.
copy editors. They just don't know how it works.
I mean, I
That's
find
very
typos in the game all the time that have been there for years that no one bothers to bug report, but, you know, they crop up.
So let's see. I did like how they kind of released that system a little bit. What was it, Sentinel, for when they're actually not necessarily they're hunting the cheaters and the bots and all that crazy stuff. That was a really interesting way that they're actually doing that.
But
That's
kinda cool.
effectively
I-
adding a combination of either a neural net or some kind of machine learning to pre-identify statistically sketchy behaviors.
I'm
It
pretty-
is-
We would hope that they've had that in place for a while.
Well,
it is
they
nice.
probably have. They just that's kind of like that's if I look at something like that and like a security kind of thing, they probably only told us maybe about that much of what that thing actually does.
They might just have combined all the tools and the algorithms that they used to
Yeah.
run into a very nice streamlined interface, right? So it's pretty similar to all those weird algos that are running on your credit cards that checks whether you can actually do a purchase live in Singapore and in London at the same time. It's things like that. It's pretty much just a tool to collate all that different suspicious data, right?
Hey,
The
McLeod got
thing here
modded.
is, though, Rip McLeod. While that is nice that they are still working on improving, like catching botters and stuff like that. Like just 2 minutes later, they show a bullshit chart that basically says nothing. It's basically just a pretty graph that has no value to it. In case you don't know what I'm talking about, they showed a chart that showed how many players there were at a time compared to how many people cheating, as in input broadcasting and botting.
That chart was actually really interesting because that was actually a breakdown of ISK faucets. So, like, ISK faucets for real players, well, not even necessarily real players, but legitimate players, and then the percentage of the ISK faucet at that time that was being taken up by cheaters. And the weird graph was like they did something, and then the percentage of ISK faucets for cheaters was lower suddenly.
Yeah, but the thing is, you can see that in two ways. Either they got rid of the cheaters, and the cheaters are now making less ISK, or, which could also be said, they have been catching less cheaters because they only show up on that chart if they actually get caught.
Well, that's not really what it's saying. It's based on a percentage scale, right? And the way that the data is presented is pretty much on par with the data of the bans, right? So it's basically just kind of saying that based on the percentage scaling of what we assume was generated by bots and people banned, that percentage is going down. So it's a completely valid data set. I don't see any problems with that presentation. It's just it's not explained very well. And again, if I'm not mistaken, that must be from Team Security. I don't think they're complete idiots when it comes to data science, to be honest.
One thing that one graph that I will say was complete bullshit, Caleb, and I am gonna stake this, was when they showed the graph of ISK and assets seized by CCP from banned accounts, and they went over the last since March this year, they've seized more than 100 trillion ISKs worth of ISK and assets, most of which the value was in assets. Like ISK, you can absolutely say, you seized that amount of ISK.
You can go back and check that, right? Because
assets
this is slightly visible in the MER, right? Some of these numbers should show up, especially the ISK one, because that shows up as the delta, right? So you can go back and check exactly whether they are lying to you or not. I'm not going to claim one or the other, but I do think that it matches pretty fairly with what it's been historically. So there's the big one that and the big jump, but otherwise it's just fairly average on the delta.
But yeah,
I put that thing in staff only, by the way, if you want to kind of grab and whatever.
Yeah, Lux just got bodied trying to put it into a chat.
Yeah, I know, same as me.
Yeah, I was already on it, Mac.
But yeah, the interesting thing here is the items thing, because the vast majority of the seized value is in items, and CCP have no possible way to value their own items, especially when their own market data, which I presume they're pulling from in order to provide a current value of those assets that they've just seized, has a bunch of different items that are either completely misvalued by the market data or simply don't have one. For example, Alliance tournament ships. So if they seize an Alliance tournament ship, they can say, oh yeah, this is worth 1 trillion ISK. And there's no
more likely it's the other way around. It's more likely going to be underrepresenting. This is also why I don't necessarily agree with you, because I would expect that whole thing to have the green graph higher than the white one, because I would expect most people actually have more assets than ISK. So they are underrepresenting the number.
Read the graph. The green line cannot ever be higher than the white line because it's a cumulative value.
Oh, so it's not actually ISK. So it's a difference.
Yeah, so you've got the ISK, then you've got ISK is the red line, items is the green line, and then the white line is the total value.
I thought it was actually showing the white one as the ISK value, but yeah, it's just the cumulative. So the ISK delta is the difference. It's fine.
Yeah.
Do you guys recall we had that event where we were shooting? I think it was an Iron Crown avatar who got caught for botting. So I think when it shows,
but did he though?
Well, he would have been included there.
He was banned, but was he botting CCP were actually logging those banned accounts in, and we're pretty sure that was CCP piloting those. So A, they weren't active, and B,
Yeah.
you know, they
Yeah,
could
'cause-
have been
They
banned.
were
'Cause
just
they can-
spawning the logged off characters in.
Oh, that's not
So
what
that
I'm
you can
getting
kill
at.
Because
them.
they can still
getting
stash
at
their
the
assets
idea-
after they get banned.
I'm getting at the idea that isn't this a good thing because it's indicating not that they're just banning completely new bots, but they're banning established bots.
But this is
Don't
my
we
point.
want to see that there's item value being banned because that
Yeah.
indicates they're banning more effectively?
Absolutely, we want to be able to see action. My point there was simply that whacker bot event. The people that you were actually whacking may not necessarily have been botting; they were just banned characters.
Or RMTing, perhaps. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a
Regardless,
it was a
they've
fun
done
little
something bad.
thing.
Yeah, my example was poor, but what I want to get at was I think we want to see that there's a large amount of item value because it indicates they're banning people that previously they were missing.
So I think there's another statistic here that needs to be considered. High volumes of small items add up quickly when you increase the amount of bans. So for instance, earlier this year, they announced there was 1 month where they banned way more accounts than any other. Just saying, that could easily show for that spike in the thing. And that could be the deployment of Sentinel. But theoretically speaking, sorry for the noise in the
I
background.
think that's corresponding to blackout days around start of September.
Yeah, well, I thought Blackout. When did Blackout start?
No, Blackout was earlier
Blackout
than
was
the month.
July.
Yeah, because-
what you're seeing there is basically the result of people moving or doing something other than basically reacting after Blackout to the Blackout and
Because
then being
there's a
caught.
delay until you catch them, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a delay until they caught them. Like
Oh.
there are people who speculate that that's the result of nullsec, botters going to highsec and then doing their thing in highsec and then getting caught by C.
Horrendous.
We got some special stuff from Vegas.
The
Got some.
whole idea that you can look at this chart and say, "Oh, well, see this? This means that they're actually getting established botters." That's completely
No. I said some people speculate that. Like,
right. But the whole thing based on, oh, well, they pulled this guy into the thing, and so that means you can't even begin to make speculation like that. First off, the
of
actual
course I can. If they ban a bot that isn't established in any way, it won't pop up with any items. It will just be banned with
But the
nothing.
thing
right?
is that what you're looking at for established botters, okay, you can either take that as somebody who gets caught botting and they've already got all this stuff, or someone who is actually running a significant and sustained botting operation. The second category, who are the truly established botters, are not going to get caught because they're doing it all by VPN, so the accounts that they're botting on are not the ones with assets.
Well, it's the people that are botting, like with stupid
it's-
chips, right?
It's probably the people botting in supers that have a bit of ISK. Like, let's say 20 bill super and they have 2 bill in their wallet. So it's 20 bill in assets and 2 bill in ISK.
And as far as these like serious botting operations are concerned, that's not the big.
Yeah, because it's the liquid ISK that you're looking for.
I mean, that would be moved off the accounts fairly quickly, I'd imagine.
As would all of their assets.
Unless they're
Everything
botting in
except
like a
what they
super.
actually use to bot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, when you look at that other graph that they did, the one which is the ISK share players versus suspected cheaters.
That is
Yeah,
the
I've been-
stupidest graph I've
I've
ever
been trying to find that. I've been trying to find
I've
it.
got it.
Oh, there
I'll
you
put
go.
it in start.
I just
Yeah, I
wanna
got
point
you.
out. I just want to point out that when you're doing the whole "these are cheaters, these are players" thing, the way CCP presented it, all right,
I mean, it's
that says straight up the cheaters aren't players, so it must be the devs.
And I'm gonna reiterate here. That could mean that there's less cheaters, but that could also mean that there's just less cheaters being caught.
That's
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
That graph's
look,
totally
you
the
have
to-
opposite,
you have-
right?
They could
you
be
have to
adapting.
understand. You have to understand this graph. This graph, when the values change, those values aren't, cheaters being banned in any way, shape, or form. This is a historical thing of basically when cheaters do get caught, that they look at the history of their wallet, the transactions that occur, and they
This is a-
basically build that graph out of it.
This is an even more interesting graph than I'd initially thought, actually.
Oh, do I need to pull it
RJ,
back up? Yeah. I'll
Yeah,
pull
Pull
it
it
back
back
up.
up.
Yeah.
This is more interesting than I thought, because actually, I hadn't realized when they were talking about this last night that this is specifically across the era, quote unquote, era of chaos change. Which, first up,
Yeah.
they managed to make 4 changes, most of which were not hugely massive over the course of 3 months of an era of chaos. Great job. But if you actually
Change
look,
every week.
if you actually look, the spike in legitimate players versus cheaters aligns pretty perfectly with the blackout, which makes me think that this is very cherry-picked data to kind of show, hey, look, the era of chaos definitely worked.
Yeah, but
Yeah, it did.
I don't
So-
know.
I mean,
Sort of. Yeah.
upsetting your players to hurt the cheaters is kind of iffy.
I mean, we're talking. That's basically,
Collateral damage,
basically-
McLeod.
Yeah, it's collateral damage. I was thinking
Null
of
seconds are
chemotherapy, but
collateral damage too.
I was thinking about chemotherapy, to be completely honest. But
Hey, there are many different forms of cancers that need to be removed from the game.
I know.
Yep.
Well, and with chemotherapy, sometimes it's the medicine that kills you.
Yeah. This is the thing with chemotherapy.
It's really easy to fix all of these bad behaviors in the game. Just get rid of all the players.
I didn't hear someone say horrendous 3 times. What the hell?
No players, no problems.
Hi, horrendous.
Hi.
I mean,
Wait. So you're saying NPE doesn't stand for new player experience, but new problem experience?
Ooh.
Yes.
We'll find that out when we get Mrs. RJ to play and see how many problems she has. That's gonna be so fun.
That'll actually be really, really good.
Yeah.
It'll be really interesting.
I got to set up probably a special interface for that or layout for that.
I'm sure we're going to get the chance to dig into deeper data when it comes to all this botting stuff. But the presentation showed the 2 graphs, and they are pretty much, whether that's claiming or facts, they're saying they're getting better at actually catching bots. That's the takeaway, right? Whether it's true or not, that's a totally different matter. And the point is that they're kind of doing this to ramp up for the whole Korean launch and the localization. So make sure that they are armed and ready for any potential bot issues, if they are there at all.
so
And also they said inequality was one of the big issues with players when they surveyed them. So this is also saying we removed 100 trillion from the game, which is sort of maybe there's an argument there around pricing, but it's saying we removed a significant amount of value from the game from this activity.
Honestly, if players are saying that that wealth inequality is a problem in the game and in significant numbers, like if a lot of players are saying that, this leads me to believe that most of the people saying it have no idea how much they're actually.
Like, did you just say no pause? You cut out.
Most of the people saying that that wealth inequality is a major problem in the game have absolutely no idea how far that goes. Like just what the difference between newbie and Aerith really.
Few hundred trillion. No?
Yeah, I think we should stop showing charts with like how many trillion is got back, but we should measure it in Aerith.
Well, the point is, this is the problem with the comparison with Aerith, because to be honest, the current game design actually allows a lot of catch up. That includes things like the economy. Of course, it's extremely difficult when the game is crashing and stagnant and there's nothing that appreciates in value except for a very few markets, right? But there's ample chance to actually catch up with current players. So the wealth distribution and wealth inequality is not as big as a problem that people actually think, because there is a plateau, right? Of course, someone working with Aerith money can make a lot of nominal money, but when you look at it from a return of investment and the actual NAV, it doesn't really scale when you're up there, right? So the new player can actually catch up way faster than they ever could before, which is also why right now going from nothing to trillionaire has never been as fast in history. Someone can really catch up within 6 months of dedicated fucking work. You can catch up with someone that's been here for 10 years.
Under the right circumstances and only under the right circumstances.
Only if you dedicate
the last
yourself to
3
it, right?
years, I went from 25 billion ISK to 400 billion ISK, which
Yeah,
is
but
a ridiculous statement compared to while I was living in HiSec, that kind of income is physically impossible.
I went in 2 years. I went from like 20 billion ISK to 20 billion ISK.
I don't know how the hell you guys are doing it, because I can't give any fucking ISK. What the hell are you guys
don't know how to
doing?
make money, so.
I don't know. I don't know how to make money either. Shit.
I don't know. In the last 2 years, I went from 40 billion ISK to 2 billion ISK because I just don't give.
Like, can I have some of that? Maybe. Help a
Well,
brother.
inequality is like this broad topic, right? And they're going to give a speech about inequality. So what I'm interested to see is what is actually their angle on it, because how are they looking at inequality as a topic in the game? I don't know.
I think that it's some roundabout way of saying that stockpiles is a problem and
Right.
extremely filthy wealth is a problem, but it's really not. The problem is that there's nowhere to put that money or those assets. So that's a completely different thing, and it's all back to the whole thing of, well, it's the players not creating the content. Well, I'm not going to throw money at something until there's something to throw money at. If there's no win option, you're not going to see a new casino war, right?
Yeah.
So it's a design problem.
It's like
It's not a wealth problem.
Yeah, if stuff isn't getting blown up in mass, then that money's just going to keep accumulating. It's simple as that. So if there's no big fights, there's nowhere for the money to go.
It doesn't help that at the moment there is very little actual reason to go fight over things. There's very little reason to go to war. There are very few conflict drivers, and we aren't seeing resource depletion as a mechanic. Just to like throw Caleb a bone, these things aren't happening. There's a very imbalanced game that tends towards the PvE, and
Yeah,
so
and I think
at that point,
1DQ has 3 years of resources stock, right?
yeah,
But
something like
that's only 3 years in the current design. That's up to CCP to fix that, right? Because they can easily make it more expensive to actually live by adding things like proper fuel design, upkeep costs, production values. All of these things need to shift. And the fact that they haven't looked at this because it's underneath the hood and core and it's painted over. So you got this rotten wall that's completely painted over and ignored for the last 10 years, right?
I mean, they aren't going to fix it because it won't take 2 weeks, Caleb. Come on.
No,
I can tell you one thing, it's definitely not on the roadmap.
See, they
Oh,
could
it
even
is. I
talk
think it
about-
is.
You should have just
They
put
can talk
war.
about-
Wait, which roadmap? The roadmap for the roadmaps, or the roadmap that only had like the first quarter of next year?
It was the plan for the plan.
Yeah, let's go with the
Yeah,
roadmap
same,
inception, but it is on their radar. They are definitely aware of how big of a problem it is. I don't know if it's directly said in the keynote, but they hinted the fact that one of the core things that they're frustrated about is wealth distribution is code for stockpiles, because it's not wealth distribution, because that's bullshit. It's not a Gini coefficient problem we have in EVE at the moment, on the contrary. So it's really about stockpiles, it's about resource gathering, it's about the faucets, and they know that now. And they have talked about figuring out how to fix it. It's just that they can't easily do this because it's running on bad code, right? It's code that can't easily be impacted by the current types of code, right? So you can't you have to change things like ADMs. And the fact that they didn't even realize, there was limiting factors that you couldn't change how the ADMs work. That's almost a direct quote. But of course, you could do something like inversing the ADM function. So ADMs have a negative impact on respawn times, which of course is a low-hanging fruit design. But if they want to fix it at the core, they need to think out of the box, and they need to rethink almost all resource distribution.
So you want to punish players for living in their space?
It's not about punishing. You're not punishing a fucking farmer for the fact that he's trying to do crop rotation 10 times a year. That's not possible. You're going to kill the soil. We want a system that is designed on an ecosystem basis. So you can't just sit there and suck on
basically,
faucet.
no, Seth, I don't think you're quite. I mean, Caleb and I have had long conversations on this topic, but to condense it down, basically what Caleb is saying is that if you live in your space, if you have high ADMs because you are mining a lot and ratting a lot, the space, maybe not your moons and stuff, but your if you build up an industry base, there should be less rats. You should have made your space more safe, and therefore you can make less money by ratting. And inversely, if you don't build up a system with lots of structures and engineering complexes and what have you, you get more rats, which will then allow you to... Yeah. And you basically have to pick which way you go with each of your systems.
It's a trade-off rather than just a linear decision where you always pick one thing. So it's a choice. It's bringing choice into the game.
And do you want to do the same thing to low sec and high sec as well?
Everything.
There would be a certain amount of that. I mean, it wouldn't be quite as obvious as in nullsec, because obviously you have the ADMs and the iHub upgrades that you can use in nullsec that you can't in Empire. But
the point is that I would like to see it pay off on the other side, right? So you are completely destroying your income level from ratting and mining, but you're putting it on your mining fracking platform, which has an actual fucking skin in the game, right? You have something that can be destroyed. So the value has just shifted. And then ideally, I would want them to make the value on those asymmetrical. So you have less variation, but more value.
The really interesting thing about low sec and high sec is that it would drive things like the Wardeck ISK sync, because if you're trying to rat in a space, and admittedly I don't understand who would rat in high sec, but if you're trying to rat in high sec, then you end up.
That's not really funny.
So yeah, if you're trying to rat in high sec, then your system has a bunch of structures in it, and then you end up wardecking the people who's putting the structures down in order to get your ratting amount back. And that's conflict drivers in high sec with wardecks that sync ISK and do all of these things that CCP want.
And this also ties back to the thing we always end up talking about: time sinks and timers and all that stuff, right? What if CCP just thought of something like everyone talks about asset safety? Let's say the only structure that has asset safety is extra large. Everything else does not, right? That means that
So I feel like
when you're
alliances, that would be a really hard thing to kickstart.
No, but the point is that then you have something that you can go in and disrupt and destroy. Then when you're destroying someone's infrastructure, when you're hitting their moon fracking stuff, when you're hitting their industry stuff, you're actually getting basically full loot, right? Based on the loot fairy, which I hope they eventually tie into truth.
Let's just take a moment here and understand that you can't give examples like, let's say, only asset safety on structures that are extra large, because what's going to happen is someone at CCP is going to hear that, and they're not going to take your larger point. They're just going to focus on the specific that you offered, and suddenly nobody who doesn't have a massive super capital umbrella and so is able to defend a Keepstar has asset safety, but all the big blocks do.
So how about this one? Instead of how much are you paying for asset safety right now? 10%?
15% after 90
days. It depends where stuff is going, but 15%.
All right. So instead of that 15% of cost to get your assets back, how about we have 15% of your assets dropping?
I mean, that's a cool idea as well, but then they'd have to go back and interact with it and figure out how the loot fairy applies to calculate that 15% instead of just taking all of your
And-
assets. What happens if that?
And it'd have to do 15% of each person's stuff, so it's going to take longer and put more.
I mean,
And for
here's-
God's
here's
sake,
a-
for God's
here's a-
sake, don't use 15%. Someone will mishear that and put 50%.
here's a really interesting question for you as well. On top of that, Soth, how many assets does your Titan character have?
Oh boy.
It just ties back to when I said that I
Like,
was
my
thinking.
Titan
15% of
character
your
has
Titan
basically
drops.
just has yeah like but then when you go all it has is its Titan and the contents, suddenly that 15% becomes, oh god, CCP round, and it just drops your Titan out.
Or worse, because you're in your Titan, so it's not counting that as a drop. It's just what that character.
So you then get log off trapped
Oh
on
my
the
God.
site.
Yeah.
No,
That's in a
but
world
let's-
where a
let's-
Titan can
This
dock in
this
the
sounds
first
all
place.
like legitimate issues that CCP will have.
But let's just look
Yes,
at this from
these are all
an
legitimate
economic
issues
point of
CCP will
view.
have, not ones they'll solve.
But just
So, yeah,
from
anyway.
just from an economic point of view, right? The difference between a passive and an active asset, right, is very obvious. If it's in your hangar, it's a passive. It's not generating any wealth, right? So I am perfectly fine with that being saved. But what would be cool is if everything that's active does not get saved
I mean,
and actually drops as
That
loot
kind
or
of
gets
happens
destroyed.
already, especially in like reaction
Not
structures or
contracts,
build
contracts,
structures.
markets.
Contracts don't, markets don't, that's fair, but like stuff that's actively being used in a process will drop, and so that's quite interesting, especially
I just think that you should add markets.
I mean, Hilmar mentioned that years ago he wrote a lot of code around stopping people from hiding assets in market orders as a way of getting around their items dropping. I mean, it was
then
definitely
they
at
ripped
some
it out.
point part of the consideration. Yeah.
So anyway, we've got like 8 minutes left before the CCP stream goes live, and this
Yep,
is a
and we-
session that I think everyone wants to watch. So
Yep.
I just want to address
Indeed.
it's CCP Rise on Core Gameplay, I think. is
Uh-huh.
the first one up.
So we
Uh,
might
The one
actually
where he
finally
actually
get some
tells
content.
us all the stuff that he wasn't going to tell us yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
but
Wait,
I
so-
just want to I want to segue real quick into the real elephant in the room, which wasn't actually anything discussed in the keynote yesterday.
Stop calling me
It was,
fat.
uh,
You can
It was the discussion that they had just before the keynote went live with CCP Antiquarian, Bjorn B, and CCP Rex. Now, if anybody wasn't watching,
Yes,
this
nice
was a
biceps.
discussion with CCP Rex, who is actually the
Brand manager for
a senior brand manager for Eve Echoes, exactly.
okay.
And this was a discussion in which CCP Rex was doing exactly what he should have been doing, shopping Eve Echoes to people.
Mhm.
And CCP Antiquarian just could not stop talking it up as a better Eve on mobile.
I mean,
Mhm.
what I heard was him saying people should play Eve instead, and I was like,
Yeah.
dude,
Yes,
you're doing what are you doing?
he had to keep saying that because he and Rax, and this is exactly what Rax should be doing. He and Rax kept making the point that Eve Echoes is basically Eve with all the bullshit taken.
No capitals. This sounds great. Only subcap fleets. How many
You can
people
play
have
it
been talking about
whenever.
that for ages?
Hop
Play
in
it on
for
the
5,
train.
10 minutes at a time. Play it on the train.
Yep.
Wait
Have
until
you ever
wait until Reddit actually gets it through their head. Wait a minute, this is a functioning version of Eve where the null blocks haven't established themselves yet.
Like,
Oh,
have you ever been in a position where you got a ping for a really big fleet and you're like an hour away from a PC and you know that they're all going to be gone by the time you get back?
yep.
Guess what? You don't have to worry about that with Eve Echoes because it's on the go.
And you haven't even mentioned the fact that PI is not cancelled on.
Yeah,
Right,
PI
the-
is just
the-
click it and it
The
works.
UI has been optimized and streamlined to get rid of all the, and they kept saying this. Like at one point, they actually flat out said it's the better version of Eve, and that's where Antiquarian freaks and goes, but keep playing Eve. Play Eve instead. Play Eve. It's not just Eve Echo.
Play Eve Echoes, but play more Eve Online. I will be playing Eve Echoes, but I will be playing more Eve Online. And you can just see how much bullshit is the bullshit meter is just rising and rising as they keep going.
Well,
Oh God!
Wow,
if
we're
Mac,
supposed to say this.
But
Mac,
if they
that
play
site is
Eve
beautiful.
Echoes, right? But
It is beautiful.
That
It's
is
great.
that is beautiful.
If they play this right, they're going to start remembering why Eve Classic was what worked.
Oh,
because
shit.
This is pretty much Eve Classic.
no.
on
Hey,
mobile
hey,
platform.
pause. I'm getting like some weird electrical shit going on here. I think I'm gonna shit. So you guys keep going. Let me yeah.
We're about to die.
I think I
No, like
Okay,
seriously,
that's like-
there's like an ass ton of storms coming into my area, and glad it's towards the end. So I'm actually probably going to cut it off to be safe because that wasn't cool.
had a massive lightning strike or something.
Yeah, that was cool.
Ooh.
So I'm gonna cut it off a little early. I'm sorry, but I don't want my stuff to like short out here. So
So, just,
Before we
just
yeah.
before we go,
So try,
Just real quick.
Eve Echoes, join the alpha.
Boat will be doing commentary on, I believe, Imperium News straight after this show once CCP Rise goes live. So if you want to
Yep.
be listening to some commenting, Boat, actually, he got wrecked for rebroadcasting last night, but we spoke to
Yep.
CCP, got it all cleaned up. That's going to be,
He'll be playing by the
that's going to
rules
be
now.
happening. So,
Okay.
yeah.
And before we go, I would just like to thank Commander A's for at least visually remaining so positive, supportive, and
Exactly.
Despite
Yeah,
the
that is
fact that I think that keynote was a steaming pie, but
It was the best.
I'll give the visual
keynote,
impression
perhaps
of
a
the greatest
perfect
thing
keynote.
Hopefully we get some like real information on the presentation by Rise in a bit. And not only because yesterday it was only we could do this and we are going to do this, but we are not ready to show anything we done yet. And so they just made the roadmap for the roadmap, and I'm really hoping that now we're going to get the information we were missing yesterday.
But let's just give CCP some points for listening to the meta show, right? Because Mittens asked for them to at least have a plan to have a plan, and that's exactly what they got.
hey, I'll give him props for paying attention to Boat because they noticed he was doing this shit yesterday.
Well,
right.
they noticed more than halfway through, but they did notice.
Okay.
Or maybe PA noticed. Just saying.
Anyway.
So
You
yeah.
guys-
So I was looking at my radar. There's actually a massive thunderstorm right over my nuclear power
Oh my
plant.
God.
It is over my nuclear power plant. That's like a couple miles away from me. So that's probably why shit's getting crazy here. Everybody, I already noticed that the CCP stream is up. So if you want to go watch that, go ahead and do that. But I'm gonna safely get out of here. Thanks for coming to the show. We'll be back next week. I don't know if Eric's coming back next week, so maybe either me or McLeod. So I don't know. Or Caleb, everybody who wants to do it. So rock and roll. Enjoy Vegas, man.
Yeah, and
Great
good luck
job,
on
RJ.
flying.
Yep.
Stay safe.
Jesus. What the hell? Oh my god, it's not letting me close out. Ah!